Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. It's just the afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. We are looking at the AccountsAdvanced Directors Report editing options. We are recording this webinar, of course, as we always do. So don't worry if you miss anything. You can watch the recording back later on, and we'll signpost where to do that. I'll just jump to the next slide there, if it lets me. So today we are, so my name is Tom Jeffrey. I'm one of the education and media technicians at CaseWare UK. I'm going to be keeping an eye on making sure everything's running smoothly today. And I'll also be monitoring your questions as they come in. And I'll send you any comments or links that I think are relevant as we go. Your presenter today is Kieran May, education and media consultant. Hi, Kieran.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everybody.
So Kieran's going to be taking you through the content in expert detail. So in terms of your questions, if you've used Zoom before, you'll be familiar, but you've got the Q&A option there, so you can submit your questions and I'll see those. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If we don't get back to you during the session, don't worry. We will produce a Q&A document that will be uploaded to the knowledge base with the recording of the session. And we'll also get back to you directly if we feel that we need to get some more information. Keep an eye on the chat field, as I say, for anything relevant, such as links. You can also use the raise hand feature. So if you wanted to ask your question live via your microphone, then we'll send you an unmute request and you can ask your question live directly to Kieran and myself. In terms of the agenda, it's, as I say, around editing text and content that you can insert and manipulate within the director's report. So we're going to be looking at text editing options, inserting content and customizing content. And then all being well, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So any questions that you have, we can run through those in one segment. Please do submit them throughout the session though, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So that is the agenda covered. I'm going to pass over to Kieran now, and we'll dive into the product and get started.
Thank you very much, Tom. Let me just share my screen. And hopefully that's all coming through now.
That's great. We can see that. Thanks, Kieran.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. So we're looking at director's report editing today. So I'm currently in an FRS 102 entity. So if I go down to the director's report, you can see the first thing we're going to look at is the director's responsibility statement. Now, the director's responsibility statement at the moment is shown within the director's report itself. We may want to have it split out within its own section of the accounts. Now, to do that, the first thing we do is we want to go to the accounts prep table, which we can find using this icon on the left-hand side of the toolbar at the top of the screen. I can then navigate down my different sections of the accounts. And down at the bottom of the director's report options, we have the director's responsibility statement shown on a separate page option. Now, if I come across to the disclosure override option on the right-hand side and select yes, it will then build this section into the accounts. You can see that's built in because we now have that in the black text. Also, you'll notice that up in the director's report, the responsibility statement section has automatically turned itself off. So if I double click onto the director's responsibilities statement, it will take us straight to that section within the accounts. Just do a quick executing script and recalculation. Just remember, whenever you can see executing scripts down at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, try not to click on anything, just so it loads a little bit quicker as it's going through. And there we can see now we have the director's responsibility statement appearing within its own section, and the director's report there is now above. The next thing we want to look at is just adding and removing sections from the director's report itself. So once again, I'm going to jump back into the accounts prep table. And I'm going to turn on the principal risks and uncertainty section. So you can see at the moment it's grayed out. It's saying it's not required in this particular file. But if any section here we do want it to show, once again, over to the disclosure override section and select yes. We see once again, it turns from the grayed out text to that black text there. Double click on the section and it will take us straight into that section on the accounts. Once that loads in, throughout the sets of accounts, you may see these question mark icons. You can see one there in the company information section. As I say, they're dotted around across every section of the accounts, but within the director's report, there's quite a few of them, and they can mean a few different things. So if I select the question mark icon next to future developments, it gives us a little bit of help and guidance on what's expected within this particular section. However, if I then scroll down to the auditors section and click on the question mark next to auditors, you can see that we've got some further tailoring options. So it's saying if there has been a change of auditors, tick this box. So I'll tick that there and click the exit button at the bottom right-hand corner. You'll see that we then have a green user text section when we can enter in the desired text. If we want to revert that back to how it was before, it's just as simple as clicking on the question mark, unticking the selection box, and clicking the exit button at the bottom right-hand corner. So those are the question mark icons. Now, we may want to add in some custom sections into the director's report. And I'm going to be adding quite a few of these custom sections in just so that I can show different features. So if I select the principal risks and uncertainty section, I may want to then add a new section beneath there. I go to the notes section of the toolbar, click on the green add button, and then select extra report section. You'll then see we have an extra report section with a green user text section. So to rename any of the titles, we just double click into the text box. I'm going to be looking at green user text sections in this particular one. And just push the enter key on my keyboard to confirm that title. Now, in any green user text sections, the first thing that we may want to look at is copying and pasting text in. Now, you can just type away. So if I just wanted to type in, I could do, but to copy and paste, I can go to a Word document and copy and paste in the text. So I'm going to use Control-C and Control-V on my keyboard. You can use right-click. You can right-click with the mouse as well to get that information in. To insert another section of text below, it's Shift and Enter on the keyboard to go down a line. If I just push the Enter key on my keyboard at this stage, you'll see that the future development cell is selected instead. So making sure if you want to go down a line within a green user text section, it's Shift and Enter on the keyboard. I can then copy and paste in some more text. And there we can see we've got that nice gap in there just to make sure that that's evenly spaced out. The other thing that we may want to do within a green user text section, if we have lots of text inserted, we may want to insert a page break. Now to insert a page break, it's Control and Enter on the keyboard. You'll see there we have the page break options come up on the screen. I can click OK. And you'll see there it's inserted a page break into that section. So if you had lots of different, text within a green user text section, and it's just cutting off a little bit at the bottom of the page, you could maybe go into the middle of that text, insert a page break, just to get that spacing exactly how you want it to be. The next thing that we're going to look at is the different ways of editing statutory text, or indeed editing this text within the section here. So if I go to disclosure information to auditors, you can see here that this text isn't within a green user text section. So I can't just go in and overtype it, delete anything else or anything like that. So the first way that I can amend text is if I have my mouse cursor anywhere within this section that I want to amend, within the note section of the blue toolbar here, I have this user text section option. Now, at the moment, it allows me to select insert first paragraph, remove second paragraph is currently grayed out, and insert third paragraph I can select as well. So if I select these two options, you'll see exactly what happens. So I've inserted a first and third paragraph, and as you can see, a green user text section is now appearing at the top of this particular section and at the bottom of this particular section. To make it nice and simple, I'll turn off the first paragraph. So we're just left with a CaseWare standard text for this section and a green user text section where I can enter in my own text. So what I could do in this option is I could copy and paste some text in. So I now have some custom content within this third user text section or third paragraph. What I can then do is that I can select the remove second paragraph option at this stage, and it will hide the CaseWare standard text. Now, the great way about amending these sections in this way is that any amendments that I make to the first or third paragraph, so these green user text sections, that won't be affected by a knowledge library update. So you can take a knowledge library update on the disclosure of information to auditors section, and it won't affect the information that's in this third paragraph. It will only ever affect what is in this second paragraph. Now, at any point, I can turn back on that second paragraph just by selecting the middle button here within the user text section, and that CaseWare standard text will come back into play. So that's the first way that we can amend some of the text here. The second thing that we can do, let me just hide that section, is to amend text, we can go into the presentation toolbar at the top of the screen here, and we can click on the edit option, which is the option here on the far right hand side of the toolbar. When I click on the edit button, it comes up with this edit text facility message. And then this is really, really important to read what's going on here. It's really, really tempting just to select yes and continue editing, but it really is worth reading these messages. So it says that this facility allows amendments to be made to statutory text, and this will be identified by a solid line on the right-hand side of the page. Now, I'll show you that in a second. And very importantly, any changes made to such text will return to default when a relevant KL or knowledge library is updated. So I'll select yes, and you'll see exactly what I mean. So as you can see here, now all of the different sections of our director's report are now showing in these green user text sections, which means any of this text I can now go in and amend. So that word "and" I can just delete out, type it back in. I can insert my own text and do what I want with it. This solid black line over here on the right-hand side, this is telling us that any amendments that I make to this particular section will revert back to the CaseWare standard text if I take a knowledge library update. The other thing to note that if I go up to my green user text section that I inserted in earlier, so where I put in my dividend information, that green user text section does not have that solid black line on the right-hand side. That means that the text inserted here will not be affected by a knowledge library update. To just see what could happen, I'll just do a quick copy and paste of some text here. So you can see I can do as many amendments as I like to this particular section, and this is the statutory text, remember, within the disclosure of information to auditors section. Now, any amendments that you make to any particular section within the director's report in this way, I would then lock this particular section so you can't accidentally take a knowledge library update. To do that, you want to jump into the accounts prep table, find the section that you're editing, so disclosure of information to auditors, and then just to the right-hand side of the disclosure override section, there is a padlock button, which is currently grayed out. If I click on that padlock, it will turn to orange, and it will mean that you can't take a knowledge library update on that particular section. I will just turn that back off so I can reset that back to normal. So if I jump back into the accounts, and I'm then going to take a knowledge library update on this particular section. So I'll make sure my mouse cursor is in that disclosure of information to auditors section, go to the tools toolbar at the top of the screen and select sec update or section update. Click OK. Now, if I'd had that padlock turned on, it would say that this section wouldn't let me update it, but I can click the OK button. And what you'll see now is that the disclosure of information to auditors section will revert back to the CaseWare standard text. So there we go. You see that text is turning back to normal, and then that green use text section is back as it was. It's really important that once you've finished editing text in this way, to turn off the edit button. So from the presentation toolbar, go back and click that edit button again. And that way you can't accidentally amend any sections of the accounts that you didn't want to amend. And there we are back to normal. The next bit that we want to do is we want to look at another way of editing text. Now, this is a little bit more advanced than what we've looked at so far, and it involves going into enable editing mode. So if I go to the view toolbar at the very, very top of the screen here, You'll see at the moment we're in form mode. Now, to access enable editing, it's going to ask for a password. Now, if you're not already familiar with this password, ask a super user within your firm. They'll have access to this and they can help you editing text in this way. But I'll just type in the password now. And you'll now see that the director's report looks a little bit different. So all of this text, once again, I can now amend as if we were in presentation and edit. But you can see there's no green user text sections this time. So you can see at this stage, we've got hard paragraph markers and things like that. Now, if I go up to the green user text section, additional section that I inserted earlier, you can see that where I held Shift and Enter on my keyboard to go down a line within the green user text section, I have the little icon that looks a little bit like an arrow pointing to the left. That's a soft paragraph marker. You'll see that throughout the other sections of the accounts, we have the standard hard paragraph markers that I'm assuming you'll be a little bit more familiar with from Microsoft Word and things like that. For any of these sections, if I want to go down a line, I can just push the Enter key on my keyboard and you can see those hard paragraph markers are inserting in. I could then go in and insert text as and when I wanted to. So the first thing we want to look at within enable editing mode is inserting a Word object. Now, it's all well and good being able to type things in to CaseWare and into the accounts, but what if we want to retain some of the formatting that we have in Microsoft Word, for example? So what I want to do is I want to go to the insert, let's create a new section first. If I go to the note toolbar, click the add button, and let's have another extra report section. So obviously you can do this within enable editing and within form mode as well. So here's my new extra report section, and I'm just going to rename this to Word object. Then delete out the text. And then I want to go to the insert option at the very top of the screen. Now to insert a Word object, I want to click on the object button at the far right hand side here. And I want to select the create from file option. Now I already have this Word object set up. I can then browse through to my documents. And here I have a Word object that I can insert in. At this stage, I can click the OK button. And you'll see now that my Word object has been inserted in. So you can see here, I've got a couple of paragraphs with some heading settings that are just default to Word, but those settings have been retained and are now within our director's report. So that's the Word object within the director's report. The next thing that we may want to do is we may want to have a look at some cells within the director's report just to try and speed things up and link things within the director's report. So I'm going to insert another text section here. So extra report section. And we'll look at maybe using some profit figures for the year. So in this report section here, I'm going to call this profit for the year. And I'm going to type out the text. Hang on. There we go. The profit for the year was. Now, I've put in the pound sign there, but what I may want to do now is have that linked to the profit figure on my profit and loss account. So to do that, I want to insert a cell. So I'm going to make sure my cursor's in the right place just after the pound sign. And then within the insert section here at the top of the screen, I want to select the cell icon, which has the C1 icon here at the top. This will bring up the enter cell number. Now, when creating a new cell within CaseWare, you always want to start it with the letters USX. That way, it's always going to be a unique cell within CaseWare. So all of the different cells in CaseWare start with all sorts of different letters and number combinations. If you start any unique cell that you're creating or custom cell that you're creating with the letters USX, so this will be the first cell I'm going to create in this file, so it will be USX1. That way it isn't going to conflict with anything else that CaseWare has already produced. So I'll click the OK button. Now, cell type options, we've got numeric, alphanumeric, date, checkbox, radio buttons, and buttons. Obviously, this is going to be just a numeric field, as we're just going to be inserting the profit for the year. In the numeric properties, width, we want to be variable. That way, the cell width will change dependent on the size of the cell. And then I can click the OK button. So you can then see, just after this pound sign, you'll see a little blank cell there called USX1. Now, to find out how to populate that, we need to jump down to the profit and loss account and find the profit for the year figure. So I'm going to use the navigation menu here on the right, on the left-hand side, and jump down to find my profit for the year. So £759,389. If I then go to the tools menu at the top of the screen and click on Tech Info, we see that we have the cell number OC2F43. Now, it's this cell number that I want to insert into my cell so that I can bring in that profit for the year figure. So I can close out of that, jump back up to my director's report, click on the cell, and then go up to the cell button at the top of the screen. And then within the general settings, I can then put in OC2.F43, and then my calculated value of £759,389, or my profit for the year figure. That's the calculated value that's being brought in. So I click my OK button, and you'll see there now that value is being inserted into that cell. I could then go in and type in additional text afterwards if I wanted to. But if no matter what that profit for the year figure says on the profit and loss or statement of comprehensive income, that figure will update in this section of the director's report. So that's inserting cells. We'll look at inserting some other cells a little bit later on. But the next thing I want to look at is how we can insert an image into the director's report. So I'm going to create another extra report section. So I'm going to click on Add and Extra Report section. Now, you may want to add an image into the director's report. So, for example, if you had a new product line, or if you had some information stored as an image that you wanted to insert. But I'm going to call this Extra Report section image. Delete out the text. Now, for inserting an image, once again, I'm going to insert at the very top of the screen, and I want to click on Picture. Now, I can then browse for where the file is saved. And here I have a photo of a green wagon. I'm sure that anyone who's been on any of the audit courses in the past will be very familiar with this green wagon. But I click the OK button, and it will insert this image into the accounts. Now, at the moment, it isn't showing a preview of this image, so it's just giving us the file name, so photo of greenwagon.jpg. If you want this to show in the preview, so obviously this will show when we go to print the accounts, but if you want it to show within form mode or enable editing mode, we right-click on the picture and go to Properties, and then you want to tick the tick box option at the bottom left-hand corner that says Show Picture whilst viewing the document. Tick the box and click OK, and there you'll see that picture is now inserted into the director's report. And obviously, if you wanted to insert any text above or below, you could absolutely do that. So that's inserting a picture. The next thing we want to look at is inserting a graph. Now, there's a couple of ways of getting graphs into CaseWare. The first one is to insert an object. So you could have this in Excel. So once again, we'll add in an extra report section. And we'll call this particular section a graph from Excel. Now, obviously, this graph I've already prepared in Excel, so that data is already in there. But once again, I'm going to insert at the top of the screen here, and I'm going to be clicking on Object. Once again, it's creating from a file, and then I'm browsing through to where this is saved. So you can see here, I've got an Excel file with a graph in it. Select the document and click OK. CaseWare will automatically work out where the data is. So you can see I've got some sales revenue options here. And then the graph or table that I had inserted will come into this section as well. And let's say this is in as an object. So this is now a fixed thing within CaseWare. What you may want to do, instead of inserting a graph from Excel, is you may want to bring in a graph or chart directly from figures that are already within CaseWare. So once again, we'll bring in another extra report section, and I'll show you that. So this section I'm going to call graph or chart in CaseWare. Then I'm going to type out some text here within the text section, just so we can see how we can use the text available to us, insert a few more cells, and then create a chart. So I'm going to say that sales in the UK were 25,000. And I can then say sales in Europe were £20,000. So then what I want to do is I want to insert cells for the values that we're going to have. So the 25,000 and the 20,000, and then also the headings for the particular graph or chart that we're going to insert. So it will be UK and Europe. So I'll insert my cursor just to the left of where we have UK. And I'm going to go up to insert at the top of the screen and select cell. Now, this time I'm going to start these cells with AG for these graph cells. Once again, you could use USX, but for graphs, I'm going to use AG in this instance. So I'm going to call it AG1. Instead of numeric, I want this to be alphanumeric this time, as I'm going to be inserting text. And I'm going to create an input cell. That way I can insert the text straight into the file itself. Just go in and check the alphanumeric settings to make sure that the cell width is variable. That way, whatever text I enter in to any of these sections, it's going to come through as a variable width. So I'll click OK. And then where I've got the word UK, I can just type into the cell because it's appearing in blue. It's that one of those input cells. I can then delete out the UK text that I had inserted. I can do exactly the same thing for the 25,000. So insert my mouse cursor, insert a cell. This time it's going to be AG2. That's absolutely fine. Click OK. Alphanumeric again, it's absolutely fine. So remember all the settings that we had from the last cell that we inserted. Once again, I can click OK. I can insert the 25,000. Delete out the 25,000 text I inserted. Exactly the same process for Europe. So go up to insert a cell again. AG3. It's retained those settings from last time, so I can click OK again. Type the word Europe in. Delete out the text from my sentence. And then the final cell that we're going to be doing it for is the £20,000. So once again, up to cell. AG4, absolutely fine. click OK as the settings have retained, and then type in the 20,000. And once I've deleted out that text, so we now have the same sentence that I had typed in, but we now have 4 cells that we can then use to populate our graph or chart. Now, I'm going to keep it nice and simple, and I'm just going to do a simple pie chart. So if I go down a couple of lines here, if I go once again up to insert and select graph within CaseWare, call it a pie chart and click OK. Now, there are lots of different options that we could have in here, but I'm just going to concentrate on the labels. Sorry, the data option within CaseWare here. Now, the cells available, we have all of the different cells within CaseWare. Now, I've called it AG1, AG2, AG3, AG4, just to make things nice and simple. Now, the labels, to insert a label, we select the cell that we want to insert, select the first label, so UK, and then move the UK across into that label section. For Europe, we do exactly the same thing, so select cell AG3 and move that across to the label section. Now for the figures themselves, we want to select into the series, so we'll select the 25,000, copy that across, and the same for the 20,000 in cell AG4, and copy that across. And you can see behind me already that that simple pie chart is already building. If I click the OK button, you can see here we've then got UK and Europe sales, so 56%, the 25,000, and 20,000, the 44%. Obviously, if you want to go and amend titles, subtitles, you can do that as well. But say we've kept that really, really nice and simple, but hopefully you get the idea of inserting graphs and charts using the cells that you have within CaseWare. All of these custom different sections that we've created within CaseWare, you may want to recreate these in other files. Now, the way to do that is if you put your mouse on a cell within the section that you want to save, you can go up within the note section, click the blue save icon, and it will save this as a custom text note. Now, you have to give this file a name, so I'm going to call this live webinar September 21. There is a character limit on this, so just to keep things nice and tidy, but hopefully you should get as much detail as you can within this section. Click the OK button, and then this section is now available for you to insert within any CaseWare file. So if I went up to the add section and went down to user defined, you'll see down here at the bottom, I have my live webinar September 21 section that I could insert, and this is available, as I say, in any file that you're working on. The final thing that we may want to have a look at and inserting into the director's report is inserting a table. So I'm going to insert another extra report section. And I'm going to call this inserting a table. There we go. So once again, just double click to edit the title. So insert a table. I'll delete out the text. So to insert a table, once again, I'm going up to the insert option here at the very top of the screen, clicking on the table option, and then click table. It then allows me to select the number of columns and the number of rows in this particular table. So I could have a 3-column table and 6 rows. Click the OK button. And you can now see that we have a table and we can overtype any of the values within this table. Now, so you may want to do this using an Excel object, but I say the advantage of doing this within CaseWare is that at any time you can overtype and insert figures into the cells as appropriate. So those are all the different things that we may want to insert within the director's report. So I'm going to come out of enable editing mode at this stage. So if I go back to view at the top of the screen, reselect enable editing, this will take me back into form mode. So now we're going to look at the sort of signing off options within the director's report itself. Now, at the moment, you can see within the signature options, we've got a secretary signing the director's report. We don't have any dates or anything like that. So to see all of these different options, we want to go to a section of the wizard called the completion section. So from the top left-hand corner of the screen here, I can select wizard and then completion. I'm going to turn the accounts from draft to final. And then I have some options here for dates of the full stat accounts. Now, I can put in the dates. I'll just put today's date in, so 9th the 9th, 21. And I'll put in the date of the audit report as well. But you can see down here at the bottom of the screen here, we have a list of directors and the company secretary and the different sections of the director's report, or indeed the accounts themselves that they're going to be signing. So absolutely fine for the company secretary to be signing the strategic report section and the director's report. So if I jump back into the accounts, I can then have a look at the question mark icon that we have next to signature options. So click on that, and you can see we can select the number of space lines required before signature. So at the moment it's set to 3, but we can have that anywhere between 0 and 10. If you wanted to have a second signature within the director's report, we can tick that box and insert that in. If you want a dotted or solid line above the name, so if you wanted to have a proper signature, you've got those options there as well. And the most important thing is to have the date in after the signature. Now, because we've inserted that date in the completion section of the wizard, selecting that tick box will bring in the date for us automatically. Down at the bottom, we've also got some alignment options, so for left aligned and right alignment, but for now I'm just going to click the exit button and you'll see the changes that have come in there. So you can see we've got our secretary come in and the date underneath a second signatory, but obviously from the wizard we can't select a second signatory for the director's report, so we have to do this manually. So we click on the blue cell, select a director's name, and I could select Jimmy Walker, for example, to be the second signatory there on the director's report. And it's exactly the same process for the separate responsibility statement as well below. Hopefully that's everything that you could sort of want to do within the director's report. At this stage, I'm going to hand back to Tom, just see if any questions have come through.
Thanks, Kieran. Thank you for that very comprehensive overview. As we said at the beginning, we are recording the session, so you can watch this back on YouTube and on the knowledge base. We'll let you know when those recordings are available. We do have a couple of questions that have come in. So we'll have a look at, there's quite a few. So I'm going to pick one just to throw at you first of all, which is...
That's fine.
Which is, so the accounts preparation table, we saw right near the beginning of the webinar that you were turning on disclosures that were turned off by default. What do our viewers do if they're seeing that in the top right that the accounts preparation table is locked, so you don't actually have the ability to turn something on?
So actually what I just did there at the end of the presentation now, I've actually locked that by signing off. So if I jump back to the accounts prep table now, so hopefully I think what this person means is that it's saying that it's locked, which means I can't make any changes here. So to get rid of this locked message, I want to jump back into the completion section of the wizard. I need to remove the dates out of the signature date section. So if you're working on your own engagement file and you've got these dates in there, take a mental note of these dates or write them down somewhere just so you've got a note of them. But I'll delete out the dates. And then what I can do is if I then jump back to my accounts prep table, There we go. That locked option has now disappeared from the top right-hand corner, and then you can amend. So if you need to do any disclosure override, lock updates, or remove or update sections, you can now do that from there. Very good question.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So let's have a look and see what else we have here. Bear with me. So to do with cells. So do you have to create a new cell if I want to quote the same net profit figure elsewhere in the section? Or can I copy and paste the same cell? Very good question.
Yes, indeed. So you can insert the same cell. So if you have that cell reference there, so if it's USX1 for the profit, you just insert that cell. So you don't need to insert the same cell if you want that same data to come through. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, I think you covered this earlier in the webinar, but just to clarify, do we have to use USX as I know we recommend using USX because it's not used anywhere else in the product, but do we have to use USX as a cell reference?
So no, you don't. As Tom's just said, it is just highly recommended. CaseWare has all sorts of cell references dotted around the accounts. So you saw that I used AG for the graphs. So AG isn't used anywhere within CaseWare either. But starting it with USX just means that there's no chance of you amending or affecting any of the other cells that are within CaseWare. So it's basically just safer to use USX. Yeah, that's the answer to that one, really.
So we have one to do with, I guess, the document map on the left-hand side. So when custom tables and graphs are created, I see that the bookmarks on the left-hand side are not updated, unlike the pre-populated ones, for example, principal activity. Is it possible to add them to the bookmarks as well? My understanding is that document map on the left is populated by notes, note titles, as opposed to perhaps an object that we've inserted. Can you...
That is my understanding as well. So unless you're inserting a section from the accounts prep table, then it's not going to appear on this left-hand side. Any other sections that you bring in, hopefully you'll know whereabouts they're on the accounts. If you are using the left-hand, the document map here on the left-hand side, just navigate to whereabouts that section is going to be, and you can then navigate through.
I think we've probably got time for one more. Let's see what we have. How do I remove subtotal from the table so that it doesn't print?
Not a problem at all.
In print preview, yes.
Yeah, so any subtotals that you have within the accounts, if you go to the table toolbar, and if I find somewhere where we have a subtotal in the accounts, probably not the best example to use, but if you want to get rid of the profit for the financial year, you have a hide subtotal option. So it's the third icon within the skip section of the table toolbar. And you can cycle between hide subtotal, show subtotal, and the default setting as well. So yes, it's the third icon within the skip section of the table toolbar.
So more of a general AccountsAdvanced top tip there, probably the sort of thing that we would include in a top tips webinar. Thanks, Kieran. That's great. Thank you very much for your questions. If we didn't answer them, don't worry, we will get back to you, and keep an eye out for a Q&A document which will accompany the recording of the session. So I'm just going to jump back to the slides. Okay. Hopefully you can all see the slides there.
Yeah, that's come through, Tom.
Thank you. So in terms of our upcoming sessions, you can see that we've got another one that's been added today. So this session is this list of sessions schedule is being updated all the time. So we've got our EPAC release tomorrow, EPAC release webinar tomorrow, to show you all of the enhancements and updates that are included there. And then one of those areas of enhancements is Note Builder Advanced. We've got an introduction to Note Builder Advanced at the end of the month, and we'll be touching on some of the updates that have been included in the EPAC. But if you go to the events page of the website, caseware.co.uk/events, you'll be able to see all the sessions there, view the agendas and register to attend, as you have done for today. And as it says there, kb.caseware.co.uk for the knowledge base for recordings. We've also got our YouTube channel, which I'll touch on in a moment when we get to that slide. But if you're also, just to signpost, if you are on the website already, you can navigate to the events page via the resources tab at the top. As I mentioned, we've got the YouTube channel, so Client Services CaseWare UK Limited, and we have a CaseWare webinars playlist. So they're all gathered together there, but we also have other playlists for various quick vids. If you go to the channel and subscribe, turn on your notifications, we'll let you know when new videos are added. We'll also signpost our upcoming sessions and any other developments within the business on our Client Services LinkedIn page. Almost forgot the name of the page, LinkedIn page, and you can follow us there. So we will, as I say, signpost upcoming webinars, but also keep you up to date with the latest developments. Finally, just to reiterate, kb.caseware.co.uk for the knowledge base. All of your articles and quick vids are there. You've also got the recordings of the webinars, including Q&A documents, and the download areas for any relevant downloads. If you don't have access to the download area, then speak to your nearest super user. So that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed it. Keep an eye out for the recording and share it with anybody who wasn't able to attend live. We'd also really appreciate it if you could complete the survey afterwards and give us feedback, which will help us to shape our future sessions. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone.